the United States Department of Justice seeking to track the cell phones of 8 members of the United States Senate. It happened, and so far there have been exactly 0 repercussions for it. And I just want to say that if my colleagues are serious about stopping, this is the same Justice Department that sent a SWAT team to the home of a pro-life demonstrator.
Senator Josh Hawley didn't come to play. In those first moments, you can feel the tension spike as he accuses the Justice Department of spying on members of the Senate, himself included. He's not dealing with hypotheticals or future concerns. He says this already happened. And the urgency in his voice, it makes it feel like a real-time constitutional crisis unfolding right in that hearing room. So let's slow this down and walk through how this entire confrontation builds up.
Support for it, and thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to the nominees. Thank you for being here. Mr. Dew, if I could just start with you. I've noticed that you've been asked a number of questions about hypotheticals, about political interference. What would happen if so-and-so tried to interfere in an investigation? What would happen if you were asked to pursue politically motivated ends? What would happen if you were asked to pursue or launch a politically motivated investigation? So let me just ask you about a non-hypothetical, just to get your response, something that actually happened. Like, for example, the United States Department of Justice seeking to track the cell phones of 8 members of the United States Senate without any criminal predicate, without any notice to any senator, multiple of whom sit on this committee, including myself, without any legal process to the senator targeted whatsoever. They tracked all incoming calls to our phones, all outgoing calls to our phones, all metadata associated with the calls, including location, the duration of the calls. Does this sound appropriate to you? Does this sound like appropriate behavior for the Department of Justice to be engaged in?
Right out of the gate, Hawley flips the narrative. Everyone else asks about imaginary future abuses. He asserts we already crossed that line. His strategy is to shock, make the viewer think, wait, what did the DOJ actually do? He's laying the groundwork for a story of breached trust between branches of government.
Senator Hawley, I appreciate the question, and I'm noticing the panel's asking me a lot. I'm happy to share with my colleagues as we keep going in this discussion. But, sir, what I think you're talking about is issuing a grand jury subpoena for cell phone records. And in any investigation, you better have, pursuant to the Justice Manual, specific and articulable facts about why you're doing that. If you do not have that and you cannot articulate those facts under 18 U.S.C. 2703, that subpoena does not get served.
You know, the other thing that's interesting about this context, and I appreciate your answer, is that the records that they sought to track and trace and tap, the devices that they sought, are in the possession of senators pursuant to their constitutional duties. 2 U.S.C. Section 6628A specifically says that those records do not become the possession of cell phone companies. They don't become the possession of Verizon or AT&T or whomever. They are retained by the senator's office. Why? Because these devices are used pursuant to the speech and debate responsibilities of senators. Yet the Justice Department did not inform senators, did not seek from our offices these records. They went instead ex parte to the telephone companies.
Here, Hawley isn't just angry. He's speaking legalese to legitimize the criticism. Constitutional protections, chain of custody, separation of powers. He's saying this isn't politics, it's law. This is where he frames the alleged conduct not as a mistake, but as a structural violation.
Got the records, apparently, again, with no criminal predicate that we know about, no process whatsoever. It is a grotesque violation of statutory law, and also the separation of powers, particularly the speech and debate clause. Here you have an executive branch directly spying on members of the legislative branch while they are performing their constitutional duties. Let me just ask you, Mr. Dewitt, does this sound like something we want to normalize? I mean, is this something you'd like to see the current Justice Department doing on a regular basis? I mean, should they be tracking the cell phone records of everybody down here on the left side of the dais? Would that be a good thing for the country?
Clearly no, Senator.
Clearly no. Clearly no. I can't tell you what an outrage I think this is, and so it's just a little bit hard for me to stomach sitting here and listening to you be asked about all of these various hypotheticals. This isn't a hypothetical. This happened. It happened, and so far there have been exactly 0 repercussions for it. And I just want to say that if my colleagues are serious about stopping political weaponization of the Justice Department, why don't we start with this right here? Why don't we find out who authorized this? Why don't we find out what laws, if any, were broken? Why don't we appoint a special prosecutor to go after this and get to the bottom of it? And I will just reiterate my calls for this committee to do full oversight hearings on exactly what happened as part of this weaponization, as part of this, I think, both illegal and unconstitutional targeting of United States senators in their constitutional responsibilities.
This is Hawley at maximum heat. He's positioning himself as the only one willing to take action. The rhythm changes, short sentences, emotional emphasis, repetition. He wants viewers fired up, thinking Congress is asleep at the wheel.
At the same time, the same Justice Department was also targeting, we now know, thanks to whistleblowers, 92 separate conservative organizations, including Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA, a campus organization. Why? I guess because it was conservative. I mean, this is the most unbelievable abuse of the Justice Department that I've not only seen in my lifetime, that I've ever read or heard about in our country's history, because it's not one little thing, it's an entire pattern. This is the same Justice Department that sent a SWAT team to the home of a pro-life demonstrator. This is the same Justice Department and FBI that tried to recruit informants into Catholic parishes. This is the same Justice Department that targeted the chief political opponent of the then sitting president for prosecution to try to keep him off of a ballot. I mean, it is unbelievable. And I hope that my colleagues agree. I hope we can all agree. We cannot allow this to become the norm. And I hope, Mr. Duva, if you are confirmed, you will do your part in the criminal division to make sure that the resources of this powerful, powerful agency are used for good, to protect the American people, protect the rule of law, to put violent criminals away, not to prosecute the political agendas of some politician somewhere.
This moment is classic rhetorical technique. Broaden the battlefield. He wants the audience to connect dots, not a blip, but a pattern of corruption. Whether viewers agree or not, the message is, if this is unchecked, it could happen to you.
Thanks for
I will, Senator. Thank you.
Senator Welch.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Could you say that again, Mr. Chairman?
You know,
I like that.
you know, I'm amazed at how quickly it went to your head.
You shouldn't be. You know me well.
Well, that's true, but I wanted to keep it on the down low so you could at least maintain the appearance of a reasonable person. But it's good to have you, Mr. Chairman. Judge Crane, in Louisiana, the state of Louisiana, judges have to run for election, which I think has some unfortunate consequences.
The tone shift is stark. After Hawley's firestorm, the room laughs and moves on, which may make supporters feel like the outrage was ignored. It's an almost cinematic contrast.
That obviously is not your creation. If you want to be a judge, you got to run. But it meant you had to do what we have to do. You had, I guess, in one of your campaigns, $1.2 million. And I know you'll get legal contributions, and that'll include from the oil and gas industry, which oftentimes, which does have litigation in front of the court. And I know that one of the controversial cases that you had to make a decision on involved.
What we just watched in that Senate hearing wasn't your typical procedural debate. This was a senator standing up and accusing the Department of Justice, the nation's top law enforcement agency, of spying on sitting members of Congress, including himself. And when Senator Hawley says this actually happened, he's not warning about a slippery slope. He's claiming we already crossed it. The fear he's channeling taps into something very deep, the idea that the powerful can turn their tools inward, not just to enforce the law, but potentially to silence or intimidate those who disagree. That's the kind of allegation that makes a room go tense, even if people try to mask it with small jokes afterward. You feel the weight of it. From the very beginning, Hawley flips the narrative on its head. While much of the questioning in the hearing revolves around hypotheticals, what if this happened? Hawley insists this isn't theoretical. He names the actors, describes the actions, and highlights the constitutional and statutory protections that he says were ignored. When he talks about senators' communications being tracked without notice, without legal process, and without criminal predicate, he's drawing a line between political conjecture and a claim of real constitutional overreach. And that's what makes it compelling to watch. There's a shock factor that immediately grabs attention. Then he escalates, layering in legal references, constitutional clauses, and protections afforded by the speech and debate responsibilities of senators. That part is key because it frames the conversation not as partisan hyperbole, but as a potential legal violation. He's speaking to authority, not just emotion, and it gives the outrage legitimacy. This isn't just a political stunt. At least, that's the way he frames it. The audience, whether inside the room or watching online, is asked to consider the gravity of a government agency acting in a way that bypasses the rules meant to protect democracy itself. As the hearing continues, Hawley demands accountability. He calls for special prosecutors, oversight hearings, and investigations into who authorized these actions. The rhythm of his delivery changes. Short, emphatic sentences, repetition of key phrases, and visible intensity. You can feel the frustration and urgency. He's signaling to viewers and colleagues alike that this is serious and must not be normalized. That's what gives the segment its emotional resonance. You're not just hearing accusations, you're being drawn into a narrative of institutional failure and potential abuse of power.
Then he broadens the scope, highlighting other alleged DOJ actions, monitoring conservative organizations, infiltrating religious groups, targeting political opponents, suggesting that this isn't an isolated incident, but part of a pattern. That shift is strategic. It moves the conversation from a single alleged violation to systemic concerns about the misuse of surveillance and prosecutorial power. Whether or not viewers agree with his political lens, they are asked to confront the larger implications. When a government agency has unchecked power, the consequences can ripple far beyond a single hearing room. And yet, the room itself contrasts sharply with the intensity of his claims. Jokes are made, the tone shifts, and normal proceedings resume. That contrast is jarring because it highlights a tension between the enormity of the allegation and the institutional response. It makes viewers question whether such claims are taken seriously or brushed aside in the machinery of governance. And it's a subtle reminder of how bureaucratic inertia can dull the impact of even the most serious accusations. Beyond the hearing, the implications are enormous. Think about ordinary citizens in this context. Phones log our locations, apps track our habits, corporations and governments have unprecedented access to personal data. Hawley's argument is essentially a warning. If this can happen to senators, with constitutional protections, legal teams, and visibility, imagine what could happen to ordinary citizens without that kind of shield. That's where the fear becomes personal and immediate. It's not just politics, it's about trust in institutions, and whether those entrusted with power can be relied upon to wield it responsibly. So, the questions we're left with are urgent. Did the DOJ cross a constitutional or legal line? Should Congress investigate these alleged actions? And perhaps most importantly, who monitors the monitors? Hawley frames a narrative that challenges viewers to think critically about oversight, accountability, and the balance between security and liberty. Even if one disagrees with his politics, the underlying issues resonate. A democracy only survives if citizens remain vigilant, if checks and balances are real, and if those in power know they will be held accountable. Watching this, it's clear the stakes are high. This isn't a story that ends with a single hearing. It's part of a larger conversation about surveillance, government overreach, and the responsibilities of elected officials. And that's why this moment is so powerful. It forces viewers to confront uncomfortable truths about trust, power, and transparency. Now, I want to hear what you think. Do you believe these alleged actions crossed a constitutional or legal line? Should there be a special investigation? And more broadly, how much surveillance should a government have over its own lawmakers or its citizens? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Engage in this conversation because the future of accountability depends on active voices asking the hard questions, just like this hearing tried to do.